Good morning, everybody. Before I start, I just want to make a remark on what Swamiji just said and what he just did. Something very deeply philosophical. He asked, who's here, who was here yesterday and who's not here? So could you raise your hand? And that's a deep philosophical question of absence. Just this morning at the breakfast table, we were discussing this with Professor Long, who's here, the concept of nothing, of absence, abhava. In Jainism and in Vaisheshika philosophy, whether abhava, absence, non-existence, can be taken as another category of existence. Is nothing something? Like Maharaj just did, that those who were here yesterday and who are not here today, could you raise your hands? I remember Professor Larson, who's a professor of Sankhya, of Indian philosophy, who passed just, I think, a few years ago. He used to regularly visit the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture in Gol Park in Calcutta. And he was very close to Swami Lokeshwaranandaji. So after Swami Lokeshwaranandaji passed, the next year that Professor Larson came, he was giving a talk. And he stood up. The first thing he said was, "Today I am acutely conscious of the presence of the absence of Swami Lokeshwarananda." So is nothing something? I remember I did a 15-day intensive course in Navya Nyaya, the new school of logic, Navya Nyaya, which is, new school means 1,000 years old in India. And the subject was nothing. For 15 days, 5 hours a day, we discussed nothing, abhava. And the classic example they used to explain nothing was bhutale ghato nasti. There is no pot on the table or on the floor. There's no pot there on the floor. And he would write it down, the Pandit would write it down, and then class would start. And the chap who was in charge of maintaining the room, cleaning the room and the fixtures and, so that gentleman, everybody else was a scholar, I was the only monk, I think I was more approachable. So he came up to me quietly one day and he said, "Do you all need a pot? It's easily available. You're all complaining about the absence of a pot every day. I can't take it anymore." Anyway. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om shanti 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 harihi om tat sat. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The essence of Advaita Vedanta is in that prayer. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from mithya to sat, from the samsara appearance to Brahman. How do you do that? By light. Here I interpret light as knowledge, as realization. And what is the result of that? From death to immortality. So what is the goal? To attain the reality. How do you do that? Through knowledge. And what is the result? Go beyond death, attain immortality. So the subject this morning is Vedanta in the 21st century. And by that, I'm going to draw upon how Vedanta is relevant to our lives personally and to the community and the world at large. What interesting and powerful applications of Vedanta can there be in this world of ours today? And of course, I will draw on Swami Vivekananda as the chief proponent of Vedanta in these times, in our times. It must be acknowledged, one must stop for a while and see what a remarkable, extraordinary character Swami Vivekananda was. Imagine, he came here from India to the West, the first Indian spiritual teacher to do so, and taught Hinduism, the highest and noblest part of Hinduism, the essential teachings, highest teachings of Hinduism. He opened the door, and not only did he teach, he opened the door for the entire spiritual legacy of India to come to the West. He did it very deliberately. He knew this is what he was doing. Somebody remarked so beautifully that when he stood up to speak at the Chicago World Parliament of Religions on 11 September 1893, behind him, before him stood the West, the modern West, because it was the universal exposition, in Chicago, science and technology, the latest inventions and discoveries. Electricity was the cool thing at that time. Edison was there, Tesla was there, there were expositions of the latest technology, Hiram Maxim with his machine guns were there. So all of it was there. And displays of cultures of all over the world, and religion also, the World Parliament of Religions. So in front of him was the West, and new and energetic and powerful and vibrant. And behind him lay 5,000 years of calm and patient development of inquiries into the nature of our own existence, who we are, what we are. The accumulated spiritual treasures. He did not speak just for Advaita Vedanta. He did not stand there just for Sri Ramakrishna. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna did not stand there just for Sri Ramakrishna. He stood for the entirety of Hinduism, I would say humanity's spiritual development. But Swami Vivekananda came in the name of all of Hinduism. And he taught, he represented even Buddhism and other Indian traditions. So he opened this door for the transmission of spirituality from India to the West. And in his wake have come gurus and swamis and lamas and yogis by their dozens over the last 100 years. And you see the spread of ancient Indian spiritual wisdom throughout not only America, but all over the world through that. Now you have the International Day of Yoga, which is coming up on June 21st. All of that can be traced back to Swami Vivekananda. He was a pioneer, no doubt. He is the one who opened the door to that. Back in India, he roused his motherland to a sense of her own, to a new life, to a sense of her own existence, life, and glory and purpose, and set off Indian nationalism and the drive for freedom from British colonial rule. All of that was sparked off really by Vivekananda. And it's not, I am not exaggerating because I'm a follower of Vivekananda. It's a historian who said, we can call Vivekananda the unconscious father of Indian nationhood, because he did not consciously start politics, but from what he said, the impulse he gave to thought in India. For example, just one example, at a time when everybody was very regional, when they said Desh, country, they meant Bengal, they meant Punjab, or they meant Maharashtra. Vivekananda consistently spoke of himself as an Indian, and one of the first major figures to do so. And after him, within a decade, all national leaders were speaking of themselves as Indians. So like this, awakened his country, his motherland, and it's people who do not see that, they are people who have not read history. What India was at that time, Indian society, politics, religion at that time, and what it was 100 years later, huge, huge difference. And you can trace it back to Vivekananda. What the religious scene here is, one of the main motivators of change here was Vivekananda. That's saying the least that one can say. Phil Goldberg's book, American Veda, it traces the influence of Vivekananda and the spread of Hindu ideas sort of gently in the background in the development of American thought over the last 100 years. So today what I'll do is, we'll look at how Vedanta helps us, how relevant it is in different aspects of life, in philosophy, in religion, in science. I'll take up 3 questions and explore each of them in the light of Vedanta in the 21st century. One of the questions is the question of religious harmony. We all know that Sri Ramakrishna is associated with Jato Mat Tato Pat, as many faiths, so many paths to God realization. Now this has been a dominant theme, a theme in Indian religious development since ancient times. The Rig Veda itself says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. The truth is one, the wise speak of it differently, which was a very wise thing to do thousands of years ago, because when multiple expressions of religion could then coexist, they would debate, they would compete, but nobody would say that this one is the one truth and everything else is false and has to be destroyed. Robert Wright, who has written this book, The Evolution of God, he's a neo-Darwinian scholar and writer who resides, in Princeton. And in this book, he talks about the evolution of Judaism, Christianity. So the evolution of God, it does not actually mean the evolution of God. It means the evolution of our understanding of God. So he has talked about the evolution of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. When he talks about religious violence, in that chapter, towards the end of it, he brings in Hinduism. And he says, is there a solution to the problem of religious violence? And he says, one solution, which is the only one which we can see which will work, is what the ancient Hindus discovered in the Vedic times, thousands of years ago. The truth is one, the wise speak of it differently. And that actually prevented violence between various religious streams of thought in India. India has been a very religious country and a very violent country also, in the sense that so many wars have been fought throughout history, any number of wars. But religious wars, none. Which is incredible for a people who are so involved in religion. Religious wars, none. They didn't think it's something that you should fight over. And that continues. It is something that is absorbed in the life of the common people there in India. I remember Rabbi Alon Goshen Gottstein, he was visiting from Jerusalem, he was visiting India, Belur Math. I was showing him around, and as usual, I talked about Sri Ramakrishna, Jato Math, Tato Path, as many faiths, so many paths. And he said, you all talk about the harmony of religions, but where is it there in India? I don't see seminars, conventions, paper writing, discussion, boards, committees for harmony of religions. I thought, yeah, he's right. But the point is, seminars, conventions, committees are not needed, because the harmony of religions is not something that theologians or pundits only are talking about. It is there in the life of the people there. I was reminded of in Belur Math, Chhat Puja. It is people from UP and Bihar mainly. It's a worship of sun. And on a particular day, early in the morning, the people will come, mostly people from Bihar and UP, and large numbers, and they're mostly poor people living in Howrah, in that area. So they come to the Ganga in Belur Math early in the morning and offer worship. I noticed in these crowds of people streaming through the gate, women, clearly maybe lower middle class, maybe not at all very educated at all, and coming, bearing the offerings. On the way, there's a mosque near Belur Math. So as they pass by, I noticed, it's so nice to see, as they pass by, women are doing like this. The way you would acknowledge the presence of a house of God. So for that Hindu woman who does not know, I'm quite sure, Rig Veda and Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, has never been to the Parliament of Religions, never read Sri Ramakrishna or even Vivekananda maybe, it is natural for her to feel that here is God in another form, worshipped by another type of people. And that's God too. I must bow down to that. So that's the beauty of what has gone into the Indian experiment, I would say. Yet, it needed to be re-emphasized in this day and age. And that is what Sri Ramakrishna did. So what does Vedanta do for the harmony of religions? So a quick look at the field, at the problem and the solution. Swami Vivekananda spoke on September 11, 1893. 9/11 in the United States, especially where I come from in New York, means something else. It is today's most unfortunate symbol, date of religious violence, of intolerance based on religion. And yet it's on the same date that Swami Vivekananda, more than 100 years ago, stood up at Chicago in the World Parliament of Religions and proclaimed the doctrine of the harmony of religions. So it continues to have enduring relevance. Unfortunately, in this day, in this age, in our world in the 21st century, harmony of religions is very much necessary because of the presence of religious intolerance and fanaticism and violence and terrorism in the name of religion. So how does that work? And how is it any different from traditional Vedanta? For example, in traditional Vedanta, what we discussed yesterday, the ultimate reality is Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. And this whole world, this universe, us, and everything that goes on in the world, including science and religion and all, are all manifestations at the level of relative truth. So they make a distinction between Paramarthika and Vyavaharika, absolute truth and transactional truth. Vedanta itself is on the transactional level, on the relative level. Absolute level is only Brahman. Now this enables Vedanta to be very inclusive, because then all of religion is an appearance of the absolute truth. The absolute truth cannot be put exactly in language, so whenever you try to express the absolute truth in language, it will not be the same. You can express it in different ways. And that's not wrong. As Swami Vivekananda says, we do not proceed from falsity to truth, we proceed from lower truth to higher truth. So the lower truth would be whatever we do. And in religion also, all of it. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Vedanta, even Advaita Vedanta. And the classical Advaita Vedanta accepts this. Gaudapada, in his commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, Advaitam icchanti kechana, Dvaitam icchanti chapare, Dvaita Dvaita vivarjitam tattvam. He is a radical non-dualist. Who? Gaudapada. And he says, some people prefer non-dualism. Some prefer dualism. But I must admit, the truth lies beyond dualism and non-dualism. And it's only a non-dualist who can say that. Now, because of this attitude, different religious approaches are all acceptable. When the Advaita Vedanta was being spread through the length and breadth of India vigorously by Shankaracharya, the reaction from traditional Hindus was, these fellows, are they Hindus at all? Shankaracharya himself was later accused of being a Prachanna Buddha, crypto-Buddhist. So, Advaita Vedantins emphasize, of course, are they Hindus? Do they bow down in temples before images? One sadhu said, हाँ बाबा प्रणाम भी करते हैं, गंगा स्नान भी करते हैं, तीर्थ भी करते हैं. Yes, my dear sir, we all non-dualists will be happy to bow down before the image in the temple. We'll be happy to take a dip in the Ganga, and we'll be happy to go on pilgrimages. All of that as traditional Hindus, which you do, we can do. But notice the difference. We are happy to bow down before the image of Krishna, but also Shiva, and also Durga, and also Kali. Not only that, if you extend it to this day and age, we are happy to, as Gandhi said, Vivekananda said, that we are happy to kneel down in the church before the cross, and bow down in the mosque, and worship in the synagogue. Because, how do you do that? Because whatever you see, the worship of God is Saguna Brahman. Consciousness, Satchidananda with attributes. And that can be conceived of, worshipped, experienced in so many different ways. So if different religions are experiencing it and worshipping in different ways, it can all be true. It doesn't mean that one is true, it doesn't mean that the rest are false. The very infinitude and ineffability of the ultimate reality means that all of those can be true. However, classical Advaita Vedanta is not as sweet and accepting as it sounds. Because we say we have a grasp on the absolute truth, and that ultimately is real, everything else is an appearance of that. So, your religious ideas, including Hindu religious ideas of God, are true, fine, but lower truth. Higher truth, Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. Oh, what is that? That's what you are, really. And that's what we want to tell you. So Shankaracharya, in his commentary on Gaudapada's Karikas on the Mandukya Upanishad, in one place Gaudapada says, Parasparam viruddhyante tairayam na viruddhyeta. The dualist philosophies, they clash with each other, they fight with each other. Every religion which is a dualist religion, have you noticed? I must say this, it sounds harsh. It is all the bhakti traditions which talk about love and peace, which are the sources of the maximum violence and hatred in the world. And that's not surprising. If you emphasize emotion, that emotion cuts both ways. Intense love, feeling of oneness which we have within a religious community can immediately be directed as dislike and hatred for others who are outside the bounds of our love. Shankaracharya says in his commentary there that yes, they fight with each other, but we non-dualists have no fight with any dualist, any other religion which is a dualistic religion. Why not? His answer, why not, is a little shocking. He says, imagine a man, remember Shankaracharya is from Kerala. So imagine a man riding on an elephant and going down a little village pathway in Kerala. So man on an elephant. And he comes across a crazy guy on the road who says, charge your elephant against mine. Let's have an elephant fight. Now that man is crazy, doesn't have an elephant. How can I have a fight with him because he doesn't have an elephant? I can't charge my elephant against a non-existent elephant. Similarly, Shankaracharya says, Advaita Vedanta has no fight with all, within brackets, the crazy lunatics of this world. Because he doesn't say crazy lunatics, he just says that they don't have a fight with anybody else because they are not teaching the absolute truth. So the relative truth can be many expressions. Why? The ultimate reality has no conflict with a lower truth. Two truths at the same level can have conflict. So for example, the desert is dry. It looks like water, a mirage. So how can there be water and it be dry at the same time? It can be if the water is an illusion and the dryness is real. So a real desert can exist with a mirage. But actual dryness and water, they cannot exist together. Shankaracharya says, all the water in a mirage cannot wet a single grain of sand of the desert. Exactly like that, a world of appearance, samsara, this jagat, can entirely exist with absolute reality, existence, consciousness, bliss. In fact, because of existence, consciousness, bliss, this world appears. Now that is not a very encouraging, from an Advaitic perspective, it's nice. It's very nice, because we are on the top of the mountain peak. But it's not a way to establish harmony with anybody. Who wants to be called the crazy guy without an elephant? So here comes the new application of Vedanta in our day and age, when Sri Ramakrishna says, as many faiths, so many paths. How does that work? So there are certain, let's unpack that. I'll make 5 quick observations and then move on to the next subject. How does this new application of Vedanta work? How does it work to establish the harmony of religions without putting down, without trying to privilege one point of view above everything else? It works like this. First, we must acknowledge the reality we are seeking is infinite. It's entirely beyond our conception. For 2 reasons. One is because it's infinite, it has infinite attributes. And the second reason is it's not an object which can be objectified by language and by thought. It is the pure subject itself. So for those reasons, it cannot be limited. Sri Ramakrishna gave a beautiful... So each of these points I will illustrate with some of the parables which Sri Ramakrishna told. Today when we leave this hall, we will not remember all these points which I'm talking about. Most of us won't. But we'll all remember the parables. They are unforgettable once you hear them. Sri Ramakrishna said, an ant suddenly came across a mountain of sugar. An ant was delighted, and it went close to the mountain of sugar, and it dragged out 1 grain of sugar with all its effort. And then it's dragging the grain of sugar back to its little home, and looked back and said, I'm going to come back and take the entire mountain. Now the ant cannot do it. It's beyond its capacity. It need not do it. That little grain of sugar is enough to fill its little tummy. Similarly, the infinite is entirely beyond human capacity to grasp completely, nor do we need to grasp it. Any one of those aspects, any one of the aspects of the divine, of the infinite, is enough to give us fulfillment and liberation. So that's the first thing, the infinite nature of God. Second, this infinite nature is beyond language. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, so there is this Indian concept of, there's no word for it in English, eto. So you've touched something with your, defiled is too strong a word. Eto is much more gentle. That you've started eating something, you can't share it with others because you have touched it with your tongue. So there's one thing which has not been so defiled, so touched with the tongue. He plays on that word, Brahmo etohaini. Yes, so it has never been adequately expressed by human tongue, by language. Whenever you try to express it, you will use different kinds of language. So Sri Ramakrishna's, one of these most well-known examples, parables, is the people going to the common source of water, the lake or the pond, the pukur in Bengal villages. And the Hindus call that jal, and the Muslims call it pani, and the Christians, they call it water. And they all are referring to the same reality, same substance in different language. Jal, pani, water. Similarly, that reality is now expressed as Brahman, as Ishvara, as Allah, as God. Different language can be used to express this. Now, this is the second point. The third point is that this infinite reality, which is beyond our language, beyond our conception, and if you try to bring it between language and conception, you will have different language, different words and different conceptions of it. This is the goal of life and the goal of religion. What is the purpose of life? Sri Ramakrishna says that in another parable of the man who went to a mango orchard. And he says, if you come to a mango orchard, your purpose is to pluck a delicious mango and eat it and be fulfilled and be happy. Why spend your time counting the branches and the leaves and the roots? You may do that as a hobby afterwards, but first of all, you must eat the mango and be satisfied. The same story, Buddha, when his disciple went and asked him, there's certain things you have not taught us. Oh, what is that? Do you exist after death or not? Is there an ultimate reality? There's 14 great silences of the Buddha. Other teachers tell us either the self exists or the self does not exist. There is something after death. There is nothing after death. But the Tathagata is not telling us anything. And then Buddha said, did I say that there is such a self? Oh, there is no such self. Did I say there is no such self? Then what are you telling us? And the Buddha's answer was very practical. It's a practical spiritual answer. He says, suppose a man is hit by an arrow. And then you rush to treat the dying man, and the man says, stop. What wood is this arrow made of? What is the name of the person who shot the arrow? To what caste does he belong? Answer these questions first before starting the treatment. To what would you say to such a man? The man would die before his treatment if he doesn't get treatment. Buddha says, precisely. The Tathagata teaches that there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is an end to suffering, and there is a way of ending suffering. Sri Ramakrishna says, your goal is to attain that infinite reality. You have to eat the mango, and that is the goal. How do you eat the mango? How do you attain that infinite reality? Answer is religion. Which religion? All religions. So here comes a very strategic move by Sri Ramakrishna, of course based on ancient Indian tradition. Consider the religions not as the truth itself. Consider the religions as paths to the truth. So Sri Ramakrishna, he says that to Brahmo devotees who had come to meet him, he says, some of you came by boat, some of you crossed the bridge, some of you came by coach, some of you walked. In the end, you all came here. Similarly, he says that the Hindus will reach God, the Vaishnavas and the Shaktas and the Muslims and the Christians and the Brahmos, he says, they will all reach God. These different religions are paths. It's a very strategic move. The religions are not the goal. The religions are paths which take you to the goal. The religions are not the truth. It takes you to the truth. And that is the purpose of religion. The purpose of human life is God realization. The purpose of religion is God realization. Which religion? All religions. They all work. In his very simple Bengali, he says, Math Path. Math literally means opinion. It's a theology, a religious doctrine. Path means a path. It's just like the English path. And then he says, Math Path, Math Kichu Nai. It's not important. Kichu Nai in the sense, the particular opinion, particular theology is not particularly important. And yet immediately he balances. You have to hold on to something sincerely. All of them will work, but one you must hold on to sincerely. And then he follows that up. If it's all different paths, and they all lead to the same goal, and they all lead to transcendence, God realization, fulfillment, then should we follow all? Again, he balances that. He says his example of the man who went to dig a well for water. And he dug for water, it's hard work. And he said, I can't get water here. Somebody told him it's maybe easier there. So he went and started digging there. Then he gave up there and he went and started digging in the third place. At the end of the day, he had dug little holes in various places and got water nowhere. And the day was over. But if he had dug at the first place, he might have got water there. So, again, the Hindu concept of Ishta Nishtha. Ishta means all of these paths will take you to the reality. And you must choose one path, or one path is chosen for you. And the chosen path, the chosen deity. It could be Rama, it could be Krishna, it could be Shiva, and extend it to the 19th century Indian worldview. It can be, for the Christian, it can be Jesus, or it could be Jehovah or Allah. Why not? See, then behind it is the Advaitic idea of Saguna Brahman and the two layers of truth. And then you can extend it further. These are all paths, and they can take you, and each path is an Ishta, a desired ideal. And you must hold on to that sincerely. Not only that, you can hold on to it as sincerely as possible. I remember I was in Hyderabad at one time, a conference organized by the Muslims in Hyderabad and a Turkish group. So somebody asked me in the Q&A, that can we say our religion is the best? I said, not only can you say that your religion is the best, you must. You must say your religion is the best for you. When you go to a supermarket, you want to buy something, will you not buy the best thing, which seems the best thing for you? Your choice, that's the idea of a supermarket. That's the idea of choice. That's the idea of a variety. But first of all, you must agree to the fact that there is choice. It's not a choice between real and false, true and false. It's a choice between truth and truth and truth. So, Ishtanishta, Sri Ramakrishna says, one must hold on to this, and finally, hold on to it. At the same time, then what about the others? Have complete, tremendous respect for all. Not only you must hold on to it, you really must consider it to be the best path. And I told the audience there that it's the girl who gets married into a family. She has a relationship, a special relationship with the husband, and through the husband she has a relationship with her in-laws. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, and so on. But all of it is because the unique and special relationship she has with her husband. So she has this loving and respectful relation with everybody else. Similarly, you have a special relationship with your Ishta, your own path. And through that, respect and love for all, because they are all relatives of this divinity which you worship. And most of the audience, especially the women, they were all wearing hijab and burqa, but they all clapped and they liked the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law example. So this is one idea, the harmony of religions. Very quickly, what is this new way of presenting the harmony of religions? Ultimate reality is infinite. Can be expressed in different language. Remember the ant and the hill of sugar. Can be expressed in different language. Remember the pukur and water and jal and pani. And this is the goal. Remember eating the mango. That's the purpose. And the different religions become paths to this goal. Remember, with different paths you reach the same place, Sri Ramakrishna. The Dakshineshwar temple. And then remember the man digging the well. You must dig in one place. You must hold on to one path and have respect for everything else. Change of subject. The next subject I want to touch upon is, remember, what are we doing? How Vedanta can newly help us in this new century. A different subject, science and Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda was of the opinion that science and Vedanta would eventually meet and shake hands. Both are searches for reality. Here you see the difference between classical Vedanta and this new extension of Vedanta which Swami Vivekananda is proposing, and many new Vedanta teachers are proposing. Classical Vedanta, I don't know how true it is, but it's a kind of presentation of classical Vedanta. Let me give an example. A physicist once went to a very well-known teacher of classical Advaita Vedanta. And the physicist said that Swami asked him, what do you do for a living? Oh, I study and do research in physics. Oh, physics, that's all Maya. Come here, I will give you the truth. Brahman, I will teach you that. The scientist was shocked. See, there's too intense a division between the absolute truth and the relative truth. I don't know how true it is to the spirit of Shankara or how true it is to the spirit of Gita and Upanishads. It might be a later kind of rigidity which has cropped up. Swami Vivekananda did not have that view. He was very interested in science, and I think if Shankara and the post-Shankara masters had lived today, they would have been very interested in science. They were very open and inquisitive. And the Upanishadic sages were open and inquisitive. So we live in the age of science. From a Vedantic perspective, you cannot ignore and dismiss science. It would be a great tragedy to do so. Swami Vivekananda was so open, so well-read. He struck up intelligent conversations, interesting conversations with the scientists of his time. Tesla, in the World Parliament of Religions, it's recorded as how he would shut his pavilion and come to listen to, when Vivekananda was scheduled to talk, he would stand at the back of the hall and listen to Vivekananda's talk and again go back. In the Vedanta Society of New York, in our records, we have among the noted personalities who attended Swami Abhedananda's talks, Nikola Tesla was one of them. Not just Tesla. There is a description of Abhedanandaji meeting Edison and having a dialogue with Edison. William James had a very good relationship with Swami Vivekananda and later on Swami Abhedananda, and so on. In fact, I think in the East Side Center, the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center, they discovered an invitation card from Einstein inviting Swami Nikhilananda. The Swami is invited for dinner at Einstein's house. Because Einstein lived nearby in Princeton, outside Manhattan. So there was this continuous dialogue between science and religion. I want to focus on one area of that. The area I want to focus on is something that is cutting edge right now, which is consciousness studies. Surprise, surprise, consciousness studies. That's an area I'm very interested in, and Advaita Vedanta focuses on that specially. So what is the current state of affairs in consciousness studies, and what can Advaita Vedanta do to help here? I'm going to make 5 progressive observations. These 5 observations are current state of research in consciousness studies, the current state of mainstream understanding or misunderstanding or no understanding in consciousness studies at present, and the Advaitic understanding in 5 steps. What it will do is, it will show you the difference between what Advaita Vedanta says about consciousness and what at present mainstream discussion is about consciousness. It will also give you a pathway. If at all we have to bring the mainstream understanding closer to Advaita Vedanta, what are the milestones we have to cross? All right, here goes, 5 steps. First, consciousness is the most important thing in our lives. Most important. Nothing that comes close to consciousness. And this is, I am not saying it, one of the leading brain scientists, neuroscientist, Christoph Koch, he said it recently, a couple of years ago, launching his book, The Meaning of Life Itself, The Feeling of Life Itself. So he says, consciousness is the most important thing. If you give me $1 billion and say, Professor, you have to give up your consciousness, I would not agree. You're a billionaire, but you would lie in coma for the rest, for all time. No, I wouldn't agree. I might even agree to give up a limb, but I will not agree to give up consciousness. Because without consciousness, I am nothing. Consciousness is central, is the most important thing that we have in life. Compare it to anything else, money, health, even life itself. So, that's the step 1. Consciousness is central. Advaita Vedanta considers consciousness to be central. I just sort of bring in Ned Block here, who is one of the leading philosophers of mind in the world today. He's a professor of philosophy at NYU. So once there was this conference, a colloquium on the hard problem of consciousness and Advaita Vedanta at NYU. And after the discussion, when everybody was leaving the room, I still remember distinctly. So Ned Block, he rhetorically put out this question: why is this so important? Why is the problem of consciousness so important? By which he meant, rhetorically, there are so many problems, so many interesting problems of the body-mind, which some research will eventually solve. Imagine, a particular enzyme is found in the body. Nobody knows what it does. So one day some researcher with some grant will do some research and write a paper on it. Good. Why is it so important? Why is consciousness so important? Because consciousness is not like any of that. Consciousness is central. Consciousness is that by which we do science and philosophy and religion and all of life. It's that rock, the diamond I was talking about, the washerman's who's scrubbing dirty laundry with it. That's consciousness. It's central. Step one. You might say that's obvious. It's maybe obvious. It was not obvious at all in mainstream discussion of consciousness 20 years ago. Science was not interested in consciousness. How interesting is that? That science was interested in the farthest galaxies, in the tiniest particles, in what's in the bottom of the ocean, what's on the moon. But we ourselves, yes, it was interested in body, in the organs and all of that. Even in the mind, psychology was interested. But the core of ourselves, which is awareness, science was not interested. But now science is interested. And it's a huge, hot problem now. So step one, Advaita Vedanta and a lot of scientists today are agreed, and philosophers are agreed that consciousness is central. Step one. So there we are sort of meeting. Second step, each is progressive, and we'll go a little further and further away from mainstream discussions and towards Advaita Vedanta. Second step, consciousness is not reducible to the brain. Big step. This is the hard problem of consciousness. David Chalmers, who is at NYU, he coined the term the hard problem of consciousness. What is the hard problem of consciousness? There is only one way of existence for objective things like this. The table is just a table. And it's an entirely objective thing. And everything in this world that you can see, this entire universe, from a quasar and a sun down to a quark, has only one type of existence, a physical objective existence. There is no inner existence to any of it. How is it that consciousness, there is two sides of it. There is the brain and there is something inner existence as consciousness, the feeling of seeing, hearing. I am seeing a red rose, the feeling of seeing the red, of tasting coffee, the feeling the warmth of the liquid, of talking, of pain and pleasure. Dr. Anil Seth, who is in England, well-known neuroscientist, he says, notice, it does not take intelligence to suffer. Deep Blue is a computer, is intelligent enough to defeat Grandmaster in chess. But it cannot suffer. If the Grandmaster defeated Deep Blue would not feel humiliated. It does not feel anything. It's a machine. It has no internal feeling at all. But then Dr. Anil Seth says, a mouse can suffer. It's not very intelligent. It can't play chess, but it can suffer. Pleasure and pain and feeling and the internal experience of life, of everything that right now, you're all having an internal experience. This difference, I pointed out that in MIT, I was shown, there is this Media Labs, very famous place. So they were showing all sorts of artificial intelligence applications which are going to come into, into public domain in the next few years maybe. It's in development. Extraordinary things. Things which we thought only human beings can do. Intelligence, memory, perception, decision making. Imagine a self-driving car. It does all the things that a driver can do, living driver can do, and maybe better. But one thing is not there. They're not conscious. How do you know, Swami? Well, don't ask me. Ask the Media Lab, the leading scientists. Have you programmed it to be conscious? They will laugh. Says, Swami, we don't even understand what consciousness is. We have not programmed anything for consciousness. None of them have any internal subjective state. And yet, as far as behavior goes, they demonstrate intelligence, they demonstrate memory, they demonstrate sensory capacities, they demonstrate decision making, they demonstrate every aspect of mind that we can think of, including creativity. Now, artificial intelligence programs, I saw the product. They're painting pictures, writing short stories, sometimes rubbish, but sometimes not bad, and sometimes indistinguishable from the work of human beings. That's the interesting thing. That's the Turing test, actually. It's indistinguishable from the work of a human being. You can't make out the difference. Did a human being write this short story or did a computer write this short story? So, all aspects of mind are now being duplicated, at least behaviorally, by machines, by artificial intelligence, except one: consciousness. There is nothing inside. There is no inner state. So this is called the hard problem of consciousness. How can an objective, a material thing, a physical thing like the brain, an objective thing, have an inner experience, inner sense of the first person experience? The term they use is qualia. So how is it possible? It's not possible. In principle, it is not possible. That is the hard problem of consciousness David Chalmers is talking about. So, upshot, what is being said here? That consciousness cannot be reduced to the brain. Brain is not producing consciousness. And consciousness must be something else. Maybe interacting through the brain, maybe using the brain. Somebody said very nicely that it's like saying, all of you, you walked through the door. So the door has produced 200 people now. No! So that is the second step. Consciousness cannot be reduced to the brain. Third step, consciousness is not the mind. That is we saw yesterday. A mind is something experienced by consciousness in consciousness, but it's still an object. These thoughts, feelings, emotions. This is something not at all understood, let alone in consciousness studies. Even in the philosophy of mind, modern philosophy of mind, it is not understood yet. This distinction between mind and consciousness. That's the third step. The fourth step. So, Shankaracharya sings 1400 years ago, Mano buddhyahankara chittani naham. I am not mind, I am not memory, I am not intellect, I am not ego. Then what am I? Chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. I am of the nature of consciousness and bliss. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. This distinction between mind and consciousness. Consciousness is not mind. Third step. Fourth step. There are not many consciousnesses. And these are huge, huge jumps we are making. So now we are making a jump in Indian philosophy also. Because there are schools like Sankhya, Patanjali Yoga, many schools of Buddhist idealism, Vijnanavada, which talk about many streams of consciousness or many consciousnesses, Bahupurushavada, many consciousnesses. And Advaita Vedanta says, no, consciousness is not many, it's one. Minds are many. We are not denying that there are many bodies present here, you can count. We are not denying that each body, there's an embodied mind. But behind the body and mind, illumining the body and mind, how many consciousnesses? So there are arguments for this. I will not go into it. There's a long argument between Advaita Vedanta and Sankhya. Sankhya says, no, many consciousnesses. Advaita says one consciousness. For example, one argument, and I'll go ahead. One argument is that, if we are all consciousness, one consciousness, then the death of one would be the death of all, birth of one would be the birth of all. But that's the body. Advaita will say that the death and birth are of the body, not of consciousness. No, if you are all one consciousness, then if one falls asleep, everyone will fall asleep. If one is awake, everyone will become awake. That would be terrible for a Vedanta class. Because one, always danger of falling asleep. There's always somebody sleeping in a Vedanta class. Someone like Swami Sarvapriyananda ji in Ridgely, in Vivekananda retreat in Ridgely, he recounts how he was there, and Miss Josephine MacLeod, she was there too, and she would ask every day in the morning, Swami, did you sleep well? Now, one day, Swami Sarvapriyananda was giving a Vedanta talk, and Miss MacLeod was sitting in the front, and she's an elderly lady, and she fell asleep. And after the class, when the Swami was greeting everybody, he said to her, Madam, did you sleep well? Sleep of one would become sleep of all. How can it be one consciousness? Advaita says, come on, sleep and waking are functions of the mind, not consciousness. Even you as Sankhya distinguishes mind and consciousness. Just like that. Consciousness is one. Krishna says to Arjuna, Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Know me to be the one consciousness in all beings. Fine, consciousness is one. Then the last step would be consciousness is non-dual. There is nothing apart from consciousness. Everything that seems to be an object to consciousness is an appearance in consciousness. Professor Arindam Chakravarti defines, he gave a beautiful, cute definition of what is an object. He says, anything that objects to my consciousness is an object. My consciousness, think of it as a spreading like a infinite lake. If it runs up against a rock or something, that's an object. I get the experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So these are the 5 steps in which Advaita Vedanta gives a new perspective on consciousness. Starting with consciousness is most important, 1. Consciousness not reducible to the brain, hard problem of consciousness, 2. Consciousness is not the mind, 3. Consciousness is 1, and the 4. And last, consciousness is non-dual, 1, ekameva advitiyam. Okay, I think I've sort of run out of time. I'll just mention the last problem and I will not elaborate on it. How can Advaita Vedanta help, say, for example, there's a question of ethics, good and bad, right and wrong. So what does Advaita Vedanta do for that? Here I'm drawing on a beautiful article written by revered Swami Bhajananandji, the Ontological Ethics of Swami Vivekananda. He has a wonderful survey of the field of ethics, asking the question, what is right and what is wrong? What should we do? What should we not do? What is good and what is evil? So it's a big field. It's a field in philosophy, study of morality, ethics, academic study. And Swami Bhajananandji takes a sweeping view of all the available theories, the utilitarian theory, the deontological theory, and so on, and discusses the shortcomings of each theory. And then he proposes ethics based on Vedanta, on Advaita Vedanta. So Swami Vivekananda's ontological ethics. Ontology means existence, what is. So based on Sat, based on Chit and Ananda, what is right and wrong. So, and that also leads to social engagement, the idea of service, of selflessness. Advaita Vedanta can justify ethics. Swami Vivekananda said it again and again. What is the justification? Why should I not cut my neighbor's throat? Why should I love my neighbor and not cut my neighbor's throat if it benefits me? Advaita gives the answer. The answer is, your neighbor is you. You and everybody else are ultimately, if you investigate, you are one with everybody. You hurt somebody else, cheat somebody else, destroy somebody else's life, you are damaging and reducing and diminishing yourself at the same time. It is not a wise thing to do. The core of ethics in every religion is what is called the golden rule. The golden rule, that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's something found in all the religions of the world. In fact, if you go to the United Nations, in New York, the United Nations headquarters, on the 3rd floor, you will find in big letters carved on a rock and placed there on one wall, the golden rule. That act unto others as you would have them act towards you or behave towards you. And you see, that's the golden rule of all religions. But the question is, and in Gita also says that atma upammena sarvatra samang pashyati yo Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mata. O Arjuna, who sees everybody as oneself, like as regards as oneself, happiness and sorrow. What makes me happy will make others happy also. What hurts me will hurt others also. If I don't want this to happen to me, I should not do it to others. If I want this to happen to me, I like it, I should try to give the same to others also. Golden rule. But why? It makes me happy, I'll do it for myself. I don't care about others. What is the foundation for the golden rule? It's because of the one self existing everywhere. Others are none other than the self with a capital S. So that's how Advaita Vedanta gives the basis for ethics. It gives the root, the ground for the foundation for the golden rule. All right. Now, so these are the three areas. We raised three questions and how Vedanta can help us in the 21st century. First of all, very important, harmony of religions. Second, Ken Wilber, a well-known American thinker on philosophy and religion, he said, religions in the 21st century, they need to do three things to attract young people. They're always worried about young people are not interested in religion. So he says three things which are turning away people from, especially young people, from religion, organized religion. One is quarrels between religion, violence between religion, hatred between religion. Young people are not interested taking one side and fighting against somebody else. Why? That's one. So religions have to stop that and come out of that. Second, conflict with science and reason. So what is already established by science, you may need not accept the materialistic worldview. That's a philosophical worldview. You can have a different worldview. But what is an established truth in science, don't go against that. What is already a mainstream understanding in science, don't reject it. Just because my old book says no. That's not appealing to a rational mind. Then the third thing is to be in harmony and consonance with modern values on gender, on race, in India on caste. So there are multiple new ideas which have come into the society in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And religions which hold on to dogma, to practices which are centuries old, sometimes millennia old, in the name of this is religious truth, it cannot be shaken. These are often at odds with the new morality, with the new system of values. And Ken Wilber says this will not do. And so you have to update, at least you must not be in conflict with modern values. I think Vedanta is something that ticks all the boxes. Harmony of religions, definitely. It can be the foundation for harmony of religions. Then against science, no, at no point. Swami Vivekananda says, I am firmly convinced that religion must be put to the same test that science has. And if there's something that in religion is found wanting in the test of reason, then it must be, you must let go of it, no matter how beautiful, how soothing. Because ultimately, if it is false, it cannot be good. You must let go of it. And third, in modern values, yes, you can, from perspective of Vedanta, anything that takes you towards enlightenment is good, towards Brahman is good. Anything that hinders your progress in spiritual life, that is bad. And you can think about it in your situation, in your country, in your century and in your age, and see what morality should be. All right. I'll do a peace chant and then go to the next part of it, which is Q&A. I think we are sort of on time. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you very much. And I'm back. So very quickly, so many such questions, and I was feeling a little guilty that we could not deal with these questions yesterday. Let me go through as many as I can. I've selected 14, and I'll try to answer as many as I can in the next few minutes. Question 1 and 2 are actually the same question. Can we progress in the path of spirituality without guru, and at the same time can we have multiple gurus? It is said that guru finds a disciple as Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa found Narendra. Should we wait like that and see that our guru finds us, or should we make our effort to find guru? The next question is, does one need a personal guru to progress in spirituality? All right. Does one need a personal guru to progress in spirituality? Yes. That is highly, highly recommended. But don't treat your guru like, the term personal guru, not like in the US you have personal trainer. Not like that. Can we have multiple gurus? Certainly. in our tradition, we have a guru who gives you the mantra, Ishta Devata mantra, that is your guru. But you may have multiple what we call upagurus. So you can learn from so many teachers, within your tradition and outside your tradition also. You continue to learn. Why not? You enrich your spiritual life, and it's good that you keep learning. But if you have to have guru, mantra, Ishta Devata, that's that same thing. The guru who gives you the mantra and points out to you the Ishta Devata and how to practice, that's your central thing. The Tibetan Buddhists have a term they call root guru. It's a Sanskrit Moola Guru. So that is it. Should we wait or should we? I remember when I decided that I want mantra diksha, I was a kid. So I thought I will go to Belur Math and get mantra diksha. Swami Bhuteshanji Maharaj was the president at that time, 12th president of our order. And I was a college kid. The way I set about it, my father said, Guru, it is said, Guru finds the disciple, Guru comes when the time is right. I've never seen somebody chasing and hounding a Guru like you. When I decided I want it, I really wanted it. And so I went out and I did it. So one must make up one's mind. See, this idea that, why do I need a guru? I will depend on my own intellect, and that is foolishness. Think about it another way. People think that I must stand on my own feet. I must think for myself. I must be independent. That sounds great, but it's also a trick that the mind plays. One Swami said, imagine the arrogance involved in it. That here is one head and one brain. There are millions and billions of such heads and brains, and there have been millions to the ages. I think above all is this particular skull and its contents. Why will you not take the understanding from other brains and other minds? So yes, we must have a guru. Then, should I wait for the guru to come? Yes and no. It is good that you go out and explore, you read, you listen to different teachers, and then you make up your mind that you want to follow a particular tradition. You explore. Sri Ramakrishna himself says, test and explore, and if you find it is genuine, then you follow. But that also exploration process must come to an end. It's looking for guru, good. 20 years later, what happened? Still looking for guru. Trick of the mind, arrogance of the mind. No guru is good enough for me. So Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, yes, but then you have to be Vivekananda. Arjuna and Krishna, yes, but you have to be Arjuna in that case. I am not interested in that. I am interested in guru and mantra and the practice and starting my spiritual life and continuing it. I am not in hunting the market for the best guru available. How to improve concentration without meditation. This person is very clever. He knows that Swami, concentration, immediately will say meditation. Interestingly, Swami Vivekananda did not say that. He said the secret of concentration. Listen to this carefully. It's so simple, it might sound simplistic, but it's most powerful and something that we can all do right now. Swami Vivekananda said that the secret of concentration is to do whatever you are doing with the fullest possible attention. I'll repeat, that bears repetition. To do whatever you are doing with the fullest possible attention. Now one might think, yes, I'm listening to a Vedanta talk, fullest possible attention, or I'm doing my assignments or writing a report, fullest possible attention. But I'm browsing the internet, gossiping with my friend. Why fullest possible attention? It's not important. No, Swami Vivekananda's answer to that. He says, remember, it is the same mind. You have only one mind. If you misuse it, let it loose throughout the day, and when you need it to concentrate, it won't concentrate. If you allow it to be a monkey throughout the day, do what it wants, when we really need all attention and focus, it will refuse. So it has to be trained. One of our senior Swamis who passed recently, Satyarupanandaji, I remember him addressing college students and saying, look, your dad shaves. If you take the razor and you sharpen your pencil with it, will your dad be able to shave with that razor? No. Why not? It's become blunt. Similarly, remember, you have only one mind. If you make it blunt, then when you need it to be sharp, it won't be sharp. You can't call upon it to be sharp. So make it a habit to focus. Put intense focus whenever you can, whenever you're doing anything. I remember a photograph that has stuck with me since my childhood. My dad used to bring home these big English books. At that time, I couldn't read all that well. So there was this book on the life of Lord Louis Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India. So this huge book I still remember. But I would I would see the pictures and read the descriptions. One picture I can still visually recall. It struck me as so vivid and simple picture. Full page black and white picture of Lord Mountbatten pouring a cup of tea into a saucer. And underneath was written, "The Viceroy pours tea with his characteristic concentration." Wow. That struck me. Do whatever you're doing with the fullest possible attention. We can all do that. We have the power of attention and we are constantly doing things. How about doing it with little more effort, little better? That reminds me of another thing which is applicable here. Do whatever you're doing with the fullest possible attention. There was this management consultant who came to our school in Deoghar Vidyapit, where I joined as a brahmachari 25 years ago. And he did something that I can't forget. And I'll show you, and you won't be able to forget also for the rest of your life. He came and, it's a pilgrimage town, Baidyanath Dham. So he came just to go to the Shiva temple. But because he had come, we caught hold of him and said, "Please tell the students something since you have come." He talks to CEOs of companies. I've even forgotten his name, something with G. So he had just 10 minutes to talk to the students. We gathered a few students in the library, I still remember. I need you all to raise your hands. Raise it further. Okay, put your hands down. That's all. He just demonstrated a crucial fact about human psychology. What is that fact? He said, "Notice, I asked you to raise your hands, and you all raised your hands. And I asked you to raise it further. You raised it a little more. Showing thereby you did not raise it to the fullest possible extent the first time around." And that is something about tells us something about human psychology, that we never do things as well as we could do them. We don't do it with full intensity, with full vigor, unless you're little children, 10-year-olds, if you tell them, "Raise your hand." Now, he said, there is a limit to how much you can raise your hands physically. And you do a little more, and after that you can't. But there's no limit to how well we can do with our faculties. So he said that from now on, every day, ask yourself 3 things: head, heart, and hand. That I'm studying, I'm thinking, can my studies, little kids, can my studies be better? A little better. How much? Remember, that much. How to make it better? You know where you are not doing enough. Remember, that much. So make it a little better every day. Your heart, how you behave with your friends and with the teachers, with your parents at home. Can I make it a little better, more loving, less selfish, more caring? Can I do something, go ahead and do something a little more caring, heart, feeling, a little better, remember. And action, hand, the work that I do, the students, the play, I play. Can my play and work be that much little better? And it can be better. Every one of these, head, heart, and hand, we can be a little better, but we can be a little better each day. There's a limit to how much you can raise your hand, but there's no limit to how well you can think, how much you can feel for others, and how well you can work and play. And he said that and he went away. And we never saw him again. But till now, 25 years later, I haven't forgotten. Such a vivid impact. You really want to improve your life, as he says, improve concentration without meditation? Do this. Do this. It will work. It's never failed anybody. Then, now I know I have this priceless diamond, scrubbing. But every day the laundry needs to be done. Kids misbehaving, getting medications, buying fresh food for dinner, etc., etc. What to do? How to do it? Sounds like a mom. Yes. It needs to be done. That's what, in fact, there was this beautiful Buddhist text, a book on meditation. The name of the book is, or the article I think it is, After the ecstasy, the laundry. That's exactly what Krishna told Arjuna. You, Vedanta, yes, but you can't run away from the fight. The essence of the Gita, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha, contemplate me, think of me, and fight the battle of life. The essence of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New. One rabbi told me, no, not the Old Testament, that's a Christian way of thinking. The Testament. So, the Old Testament and the New, essence of it. When Jesus was asked, he said, tell us the most important commandment. He said, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy might. Good. And love thy neighbor. And Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, or that Ma Manuspara Yudhyacha, Swami Vivekananda, Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha, for your own liberation, for your own enlightenment and moksha, and for the welfare of the world. So you cannot run away from engagement with the world. Why should you? When the body is there, the capacity for work is there, why should you run away? How does this help? Knowing this diamond, that you are this infinite, unlimited consciousness. From that perspective, you can do your groceries, you can scold and love your kids, and you can do everything that is needed in profession, in family, in life, and you can stop all activities and sit on a mountaintop also. All of it is entirely possible from this vastness, this radiant vastness which is your real nature. From that thing, if you get tired, if you get exhausted, if you get irritated, take a moment to dive deep into your own nature. That's the advantage of knowing this, of having this at your disposal. And then get back into the battle of life, you will enjoy it. Similarly, even if it is appearance at the transaction level, we are all experiencing all the pleasure and pain. Bhagavan ki Leela, play of God, is not a satisfactory answer. It is very difficult to calm your mind. Tragedies of the war or killing of innocents. It's very difficult to calm your mind thinking that you are unaffected. That is more apathy than detachment. How to console the mind during tragedies. So this is where I was saying application of Vedanta. It engages you in this world knowing the oneness of all things. And the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That you are the one who is suffering there. If you don't like the suffering, then equally, because it is suffering, there it has to be removed. I am literally quoting Shanti Deva from Bodhicharya Avatara. Suffering should be removed. Why? Because it is suffering. That my suffering and the suffering of others, this is ignorance. Advaita Vedanta looks at it the other way around. This my is expanded to include everything. Therefore, what is the answer to all this? You will remain centered in your nature as Atman and engage with the world. What is the answer to suffering? To try to remove suffering. That's the answer. And in order to do that, you must remain spiritually centered. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll be sucked into trying to remove your own personal little suffering only, and that's it. That leads to selfishness. That leads to war. That leads to tragedy. And what leads to one country attacking another country? Rather than a country, one very powerful man. There is some sense of, I need that. I am threatened by that. Therefore, I lash out if I am powerful. If I am not powerful, I run away. What leads somebody to kill children? The clear feeling that I am here, I am all involved with my own problems. Others are just like objects, they don't matter even. And there is no sense of sympathy or sense of empathy even with the suffering of others, especially even children. It all boils down to a limited idea of the self. I cut off from everybody else. Upanishad says, Dvitiyad vai bhayam bhavati. From the other, from the second comes fear. At the root of greed is fear, at the root of hatred is fear, at the root of weakness and all deceit is fear. Fear is fundamental to samsara. No fear, no samsara. Janaka, When he gets enlightenment, his guru tells him, not that you are enlightened, you have realized you are Brahman, not even that. He tells him, Abhayam vai prapto si Janaka. Oh Janaka, you have attained fearlessness. Swami Vivekananda said, the only reason I preach Vedanta is that it makes you strong, it makes you fearless. So, I'll be a little harsh here. I remember listening to this similar question, but in more vivid terms. It was put to me by a student in India. I still remember in my recent trip to India. He said, all this philosophy is good when a child is suffering, when a little dog is run over by a car and all. Where does all this philosophy come in? How does it help at all? I hope you think about these things. And I said, what you are saying is stuff and nonsense. Notice, there is no use in being overly sensitive and weeping, and then what are you doing about it? Nothing. If you are philosophizing about it and that gives you a course of action, gives you a philosophy of life to deal with it in your personal life and be of help and service to others, great, good for you. If I am deeply sensitive and I break down in tears at every sight of suffering, real or imagined, no good. You are no good to yourself or to anybody else. It must be expressed in action in some way. You might not run and collect money or go on a peace mission or something. You can write poetry about it. You can philosophize about it. You can do something which expresses and helps if it's good to others. Namaste Swamiji, how do we get conviction that there is isness after death, existence and hence awareness after death? Okay. Why do you think there will be no existence, that you do not exist after death? I said, obviously. Not obviously. Think about it. There's a reason, something that you have already accepted without inquiring. What is that we have accepted without inquiring which makes us feel we'll be dead, we will not exist after death? I am the body. No, Swamiji, you are consciousness, but consciousness is generated by the brain, the body. I am the body. Well, yes, that's true. It isn't true. Who told you it's true? Ask any scientist, any doctor, can you demonstrate that brain, nervous system produces consciousness? No. Can you explain how the brain or nervous system produces consciousnness? No. Do you have any idea, any possible theory? And I'm saying this with all knowledge, with the latest theories, Tonini and others. No theory even cuts the ice. No theory comes close to even beginning to explain in principle how an objective thing like this could produce a subjective experience of consciousness. No idea. Nobody has any idea. Therefore, you cannot say death of the body is death of consciousness. Notice a subtle point. When I'm talking to you or you are talking to me, you are aware you are talking to a person. Do you think you're talking to a body? You're talking to a person in the body, maybe embodied. Now, when the body dies, clearly death is death of the body. When the body dies, we immediately jump to the conclusion the person is dead, thereby equating body and person. But throughout the life, we never equated body and person. We have made an assumption that the person is somehow being generated by the body, like a flame being generated by a burning candle. But that's already subscribed to a materialist reductionist view of the person. Can the person exist without this body? And that's what every religion claims, not just Vedanta. All religion is predicated on the belief, the axiom, the claim that there is survival after death. And to counter that, you have to show that which dies with the death of the body is the person. You have to show that. In modern science, you have no understanding also, let alone consciousness. What is mind? No understanding. No understanding. The mind itself doesn't fit into our modern physics worldview. Those who say it is rubbish, what he's talking about, you haven't thought it through at all. It just takes a little bit of thinking to show where in all of, say, suppose you take Stephen Hawking, say simple, not so simple, but pretty good introduction, brief history of time. Where does it talk about mind and consciousness? Where can it even possibly talk about mind and consciousness? Nowhere. And yet, mind and consciousness are obviously present. You are a mind. So how do you know that the mind dies with the death of a physical entity like the living body? We don't know. That much we must be ready to say. It could be, but we don't know. All right, another psychological experience. Now look at it from your own perspective, just your inner perspective. Are you experiencing a body? Yes? And you are experiencing, I am aware, I am conscious, I am thinking. I am this Sarvapriyananda, I am experiencing a body. When I fall asleep, and I dream, am I experiencing this body? No. I am experiencing a dream world. In that I have a kind of body which is generated in the dream. All of that, and I don't know it's a dream. When I wake up, I realize it was a dream. But notice what happened. What happened was, my conscious experience continued. First with reference to this body, then I forgot this body entirely, excluded this body entirely, and my conscious experience continued in the dream. Which means, in principle, from an inner perspective at least, you can continue to exist and experience things without experiencing the body, this body. In principle. Do you see this point I'm trying to make? The obvious materialist answer would be, no, Swami, the body is there, it has fallen asleep, in the brain of that body your dreams are happening. Again you have assumed that the mind and consciousness are being generated by the brain. Okay. Namaste Swamiji, two-part question. The superimposition seems to make sense from many to one, or the many appears in the one. But superimposition from one willing to be many, will this happen to the enlightened again? So ignorance is an appearance, will that reoccur again? Answer is no, don't worry. Once you're enlightened, ignorance will not reoccur, the samsara will not reoccur. So how do you know? How do you know? Well, Advaita is a very interesting answer. It never occurred in the first place. How can it reoccur? One of our sadhus who was discussing this question of Janma and Punarjanma. Is there one life or many lives? One life according to many of the Abrahamic religions and many lives according to all the Indian religions. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, multiple lives. But which is true? Do you have one life or many lives? Punarjanma in Hindi. So the discussion was going on, and our monks in that particular, it was a Himalayan ashram. We had all become disgusted with the discussion. So this Swami who was bugged with this question, he took the question outside. The nearby ashram, where a great Vedanta teacher, not our order, but a traditional monk was teaching. So our Swami went and asked him, Ek janma ya punarjanma? One life or one birth or many births? Rebirth. And the answer was, Mahatma ji, jab janma nahi to punarjanm kahe ka? Where, my dear sir, my dear monk, when there is not even one birth, how can there be rebirth? And then he said, Aap Mandukya padhiye. And that monk came back and told me himself this story. And he was disgusted. It's no use talking to these non-dualists. Everything is for them Brahman and Maya. So I'm asking a serious question. One birth, many birth, and not even one birth. Forget many births. If ultimately Brahman alone is real, where is the question of samsara, world, birth? So it will not happen again. Don't worry. Once you're enlightened, you are safe. Rukmini from Florida, we are products of Maya, Pancha Mahabhuta. How can we transcend Maya to get our true nature when we do not have the tools to do so? Okay, we are not products of Maya. That's what Advaita Vedanta says. Don't put yourself on this side of the equation. Put yourself on the other side. You are Brahman. Through Maya, you are appearing in this way. You are not product of Maya. You are more powerful than Maya because Maya depends upon you. How do we get to our true nature when we do not have the tools to do so? You have the tools to do so. First of all, if it's your true nature, if it is, look at your language, if it is your true nature, it must be your true nature right now. So it's there. Now, the tools to do so. tools to recognize, realize this. It is Vedanta. Or in a more liberal sense, all of spirituality. Why are gods and goddesses there? To distract us from true consciousness, which is nirvikalpa and nirakara? Good question. I see a lot of Hindus especially have this problem. If you go to a devout Hindu household, and Swamiji, here is my prayer room. It is a supermarket of gods and goddesses. It will beat American supermarkets, all gods and goddesses. Yes, it can be a distraction. It can be a distraction. That's why Ishta Devata is there, mantra and Ishta Devata. But from an Advaitic perspective, no problem at all. Because all those names and forms are names and forms of the same reality. All the jewelry is the same gold, all the waves are the same water. It is the same reality appearing as Lakshmi, as Kali, as Durga, as Shiva. As Advaita Vedanta has no problem at all. This or that, both or none. So there is no problem there. Distract us. They don't actually distract us. One may distract from the other, but these are the ones which take us away from the world. What really distracts us from our real nature is samsara, not the forms of gods and goddesses. What is the form of a god and god or goddess? What is God with form or even without form? It's basically your real nature. It's you. But it's impossible for us to grasp that because it's not an object. And our very nature of our senses and our mind is to grasp an object. So the technology of religion, of devotion, is to make that which is not an object, give it an objective form. The form and the name and the qualities, even the formless with qualities, they are objective. When the Christian or the Muslim prays to God or Allah, not as my own reality, as somebody out there. Yes, formless, but with certain auspicious qualities, with names, auspicious 99 names mentioned in the Quran, or the various names of God. That's objective. But those objects are not that which trap us in samsara. They will help us to get free of samsara. Not all object is bad. There's object which traps us in samsara, there's object which frees us from samsara. Ultimately, the objective character of the reality is denied in Advaita Vedanta. So the reality is subjective. No, it's not even subjective. If the object is denied, then the subject no longer remains the subject. It remains as the reality. All right, the last one. We have run out of time. Pranam Swamiji, my name is Maitreyi. You mentioned how the comet is seen because of the light. So every experience shows us our awareness of it. Every experience points to the one awareness itself. That is what we have to notice. Excellent. It's a very good point to end this discussion on. Every experience points to the reality. The thing is, for us in the normal state, the way we are, every experience points to different things. When I see you, I see people. When I see the table, my experience is table. When I see the hand, my experience is hand. People, table, hand, all are appearing to consciousness, in consciousness, and according to Advaita Vedanta as nothing other than consciousness. Just as seeing everything also means I'm seeing lots of things, it also means the eyes are seeing, the same eyes are seeing. If I'm aware of that, when I see a person, I say not only person, but eyes are seeing the person. When I see the clock, I am keeping a track of time. When I see the clock, it's not only clock, same eyes are seeing the clock. When I look at the shirt, it's not only shirt, same eyes are seeing the shirt. So whatever I see reminds me that the eyes are seeing, if I'm aware of that. Similarly, any experience we have, external or inner in the mind, or any experience we have is a proof that I am consciousness. So if you use the experiences to turn back to consciousness, how do you turn back? You can't physically turn back. You can't even mentally turn back. You can only turn back means you know that you are consciousness. It's like looking at your face in the mirror. You see the mirror there, you see the face in the mirror there, and from there you have to come back to the real face, which you can't see. You can only see a reflection. From there you come back to an awareness of the true face, which is not something that you are actually directly seeing. Kena Upanishad says, Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate. In every experience, if you realize, I am Brahman, you are free, you are immortal. Which experience? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Oh, seeing what? Anything. Smelling, tasting what? Anything. When you are happy, when you are sad, when you are hurting, when you are enjoying, everywhere, pratibodha viditam matam. Then you realize that it is just one radiance appearing as these thousands and thousands and millions of different experiences. But the radiance is the same, and that radiance you are, it's always free of the experiences. You realize your freedom right now, right here, and forever. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we're all very grateful for Swamiji. And we hope that he'll come back and grace our center again before too long. Thank you, Arati. So this ends the weekend program. Glad you could all come. I know that everyone enjoyed it.